Hello and welcome to the How of High Performance. And today I am just beyond thrilled to have the one and only Marg Jobling, Group CMO for NatWest, as one of our very special guests. Welcome, Marg.
Well, thank you for having me, Sally.
So just so people listening or watching can understand where your nuggets of wisdom have come from, can you just share with me a very top line overview of your career, Marg?
Oh my word, how long have you got? So started while working at Unilever. So I was there nearly 16 years. Started in R&D as a research scientist, then moved into marketing, various brands, Dove, Vaseline, Impulse, various iterations of local marketing, European marketing, global marketing. 16 years left Unilever. Sara Lee, which was like a little mini Unilever. 2 years in, Unilever bought Sara Lee, so that was a little foray to step out, and then I was getting pulled back in. So didn't want to go back because I've always said look forward, don't look back. So at that point, I ended up working for Cadbury. So the day I started was the hostile takeover from Kraft. So I am a corporate black widow. So joined Cadbury, said they'd never get taken over. A couple of years later, they got took over. And so at that point, I loved the company, to be honest, but it was very, very different under a Kraft regime. So I ended up going to private equity. So I did a few years at PE, worked for Birdseye, frozen foods, and then regulated business. So I went to Centrica, it was British Gas in the UK, and I became CEO of Centrica, and then moved from into financial services, so NatWest Group. It's been 5 years now. So I've sort of done blue chip, frozen food, personal care, energy, bit of private equity chucked in, and now banking. So I've moved categories, moved businesses. So yeah, learned a lot over those many years.
I think our challenge will be to take the nuggets out in the time we have today, Mark, because I'm sure you have more than plenty. Starting this conversation, I start with the question in terms of how do you define high stakes? Because I think one thing we should all be very aware of is high stakes means different things, different people at different times. So just very human conversation, how, Mark, do you personally define high stakes?
Risk, high return.
Nice.
So yeah, something that puts you, there's jeopardy, but there's upside if you jump in and take the jeopardy.
I like that. Thank you. And if you're thinking about that amazing career you've just shared with us, is there a key leadership moment that was high stakes that stands out for you in terms of, wow, that at that point, whether it be recent or, formation times of your career, a high stakes leadership moment that you led through as a senior leader, and your kind of core approach to how you did lead through successfully, whatever those high stakes were?
Oh, I've had a few, I would say. One of the biggest was getting the board at Centrica to sign off on £100 odd million. That was quite a big, it could have gone totally pear-shaped. In fact, it eventually did because the CEO got ousted afterwards, but getting that through the board, I think, was a very big, we're looking at basically rebranding the entire business, and none of the key stakeholders wanted to do it apart from the CEO. So it was a massive project, and spent a year, I think, getting all of the business case, but it culminated in having to go at the board to convince them that they were going to sign. I would have said a check, that's not how old I am, but sign off on, I think it's £125 million at the time. And that was because if the answer was no, that would have been literally every year's work down the pan. But there was a lot of naysayers around that table. So I think that was one of the biggest, at least commercial sign-off decisions I've had to do.
And can you take us through just how you achieved that? And kind of, obviously it's very complicated, it was a year, but there were some key practical leadership nuggets that you did, that how you managed to get that to go through from your perspective. I'd love just a couple of those nuggets.
First, for me, is data driven, and I think there's definitely a thematic when you look at when I've been most successful landing stuff find in business there's lots of opinions. So I would start with a data set, really understand your stakeholder base, where they're coming from, and it's the direct and indirect. So you don't always know where the curveball's going to come from, but spend some time really thinking about what's there, I guess, the barriers and triggers. What would they say today? What do you want them to say? What do you need to do to shift them from point A to point B? And then invest time in the relationship and spend time with them, because it's amazing. I would rarely walk into a big set piece like that without spending time with the key players and shaping your argument and honing your argument. But yeah, the core of it though is start with a really solid, because it allows you to challenge opinion. People respond and feedback. So it's a combination, I think, of heart and mind, rational and the emotional, to get stuff over the line. And bring it to life is the other bit. How do you create the vision for what the art of the possible? In Unilever, you would always come in with the prototype. Let me show you this thing. Isn't it sexy? Isn't it lovely? Isn't it amazing? And then this is how much it's going to cost. So don't lead with the rational, lead with the heart and the emotional and the vision, and then serve up the numbers and the costs. And because ultimately we're people, we buy into dreams and aspirations, and the more you can bring that to life for people, the better.
And was there something you can recall about how you managed yourself? Because you're the leader, you're the one pitching for that very significant commercial outcome. Was there anything you remember about how you self-managed, Marg, as a senior leader in high stakes that also helped you to lead others well?
I mean, the big part of it is managing your energy, because it is a roller coaster. You go up and down on some of this stuff, and you go, and actually and also I'm totally WYSIWYG. Is she happy? Is she sad? Is she feeling pressured? Is she feeling but I'm also very conscious of that. So knowing, there's no point in me getting stressed, because if I'm stressed and I look stressed, then all I'm going to do is emanate stress. So, staying calm. And also I have a whole mantra on life, which is nobody died doing the stuff we're doing. This is not brain surgery. I'm on 6 months notice, and I can get another job in 6 months. So has always kept me centered is this sort of, I'm not solving for world peace, and therefore it's really important. That said, when you have the bad days, you've got to go, what's this all about? Why am I feeling like this? And why? And pull yourself together and have a word with yourself, and you pick yourself up and off you go. But I think I'm centered around, this isn't brain surgery, actually, and you're doing this for the right reason, and staying really clear on what you're trying to get to and why. And you can roll with that. And actually I think one of the things that really motivates me is trying to figure out people, like where they're coming from and why they're saying that and why they're being so difficult and why. So I love that. You either get your energy from that, or it can suck the life out of you. And I get my energy from trying to figure people out, because if I can figure them out and my side, then I'll be more successful.
I like that. And what about life? Because I'm very clear that people are not just leaders with job titles and budgets. They're humans. And I think high stakes happens in life as well as leadership. So if you're happy to share, is there a high stakes moment from your life that you navigated, and any kind of practical, again, how you navigated, you can share for the benefit of others?
Oh, high stakes. That could be high stake. So I got divorced, and I remember feeling really unhappy, really, really unhappy, and saying not happy, and getting the answer, yes, you are. And that, I think that was probably the lowest point in my life, if I'm honest. I think I've always said you can have stress at work, you can have stress at home, but you can't have the busy job. And decided didn't want to be married to this person anymore because we had nothing in common. So that was pretty high stakes, I would say, not really knowing what was on the other side, but knowing I just wasn't happy with where I was and what that was going to roll out to in the next 20, 30 years of my life. So made a decision that I was going to not be with him anymore. That
And
was hard.
yes, I imagine really hard. And how did you manage to navigate that change? Because it's very emotional, whilst you're still leading in a senior role. Was there any tips you can offer to anyone else who might be going through high stakes where there's emotion and uncertainty and pain that's evoked in how to get through that?
Yeah, I'm in support network, so I have brilliant friends, family. I didn't tell my family for a good few weeks. My family were like, why are you not calling us anymore? And then I remember my dad saying to me when I told him, he said, oh my God, like you could murder someone and I would still love you and I'd still be there to support you and it was that moment you go, oh, like, you've been holding it in. So I would say first and foremost, make sure you're talking to people and they know. It was interesting for me, work, because I've got a phenomenal ability to compartmentalize. I always felt work became a bit of an escape. I could go to work and focus on something else that wasn't that. So work gave me a purpose that allowed me to basically manage my energy. So but it was mainly support network, friends, making sure you had people around you, kept you strong, look after yourself, exercise. I was running, that also helped, because I think physically it just gave you energy and gave you something to focus on. So look after yourself, talk to people. People, it's incredible supportive when you need help, ask for help. I think we're really bad at not asking people for help. But that was probably the hardest time in my career, because home life was awful and you were trying to run a job. So that probably was the highest stakes, I think, from a personal perspective.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Thank you. And in terms of looking both through the lens of life and leadership, are there key lessons that have stayed with you, Marg, for leading well through high stakes that you can share with other people?
Well, I was saying my philosophy is this isn't brain surgery, and I'm really clear about that. I genuinely, and I don't know where from an early stage would believe the worst that you could do is sack me. Like I genuinely believe that, and that isn't so terrible. It would be okay, and I think that drives whether it's self-preservation, but a belief that if you're doing the right thing for the right reasons, stick with it. Like believe and back yourself. And if you emanate energy and anxiety in a negative way, you're just going to make people anxious around you. So if you're the top of the tree trying to drive outcomes and get people behind you, the last thing they want is someone who's nervous and unsure and just emanating, I'm not quite positive about we should be doing this stuff. So I've always gone, if you believe in it, back yourself and get on with it, and people will follow you. If you waver, there's nowhere people are going to follow you. So but equally, when it is a knock, pick yourself up, regroup, re-strategize, and off you go again. And if you know where the knocks are going to come from in advance, you can plan for it and think about it, and then go and challenge either the naysayers or the people that will derail you. But it doesn't always work like that. Stuff can come out from the side and you didn't see it coming. But that's just, I think, opportunity to regroup, rethink. And even when I've seen people are particularly challenging, quite often when you step back from it, there is a point in there somewhere. You might not agree with it, and those points potentially are inflection points for you to sit back and go, well, have I thought this through well enough? Is there something I've missed? Is there? But always stay true to, if you're doing the right thing for the right reasons, then nobody has the answers better than you have. They've just got different perspectives, and
that's lovely.
You've just got to stand by what you believe.
So I think you may have already asked my last question, or answered my last question, but I'm going to ask it just in case it triggers something else in your mind. So I always like to say, just before we say goodbye, you know me, Marg, I like to be simple and straight, make it as easy and as focused and practical as possible. So if there's only one thing, which you may say, yes, I've actually said it, and we can repeat, and that's no problem. But if we say, right, there's only one piece of advice you could give to a fellow C-suite leader, so those people who are seasoned, who have led to high stakes, stakes currently. So I don't think what leader isn't, to be honest, right now.
Yeah.
That one piece about how they lead, that one practical nugget to lead through high stakes well, through mastering the how. What would that one piece that you would say as advice?
I'd probably say, because I think there's a misconception in business that you give it all away. And actually, if you're not strong and healthy and resilient and back yourself, no one's going to, I'd probably go, love yourself, don't be too hard on yourself, back yourself, but look after yourself in the middle of all of that, because the world is mad and it's going to be ever more. If you said to me 5 years ago, going into COVID, that the next 5 years would evolve as they have, you would have said that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
True.
But we've got through it, we've navigated through it. It was more resilience than everyone could have even hoped. But I think that's the new norm. So I think the world is slightly bonkers and day to day is high stake. I mean, there's higher stakes and but they're just navigating business in today's world and personal life in today's world is not straightforward. So, but if you're strong and look after yourself, chance of fighting the good fight.
Oh, Marg, that's a lovely mic drop moment. So thank you. You've been clear as ever, insightful, wise, and generous. And thank you so much for
You're welcome.